Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a long time in the making, and I'm proud to bring you the Juan&Only's first ever battery drain test on the Apple Watch line. I'm sorry it took up until now to finally perform one of my infamous battery drain tests on the Apple Watches, but logistically, it was a bit more difficult than you'd initially imagine. See, thing was, it wouldn't make much sense to play with my Apple Watches all day and sit them down on the table and record. I mean, with the iPads at least, it's plausible that one can be on Netflix for 3+ hours. I know I've done that before a few times, so instead, it didn't make much sense since nobody uses their Apple Watch like that. So I needed some guidance, and I asked you guys, and you all overwhelmingly supported the idea of a point of view style battery drain test. A drain test I was secretly performing over a short period of time. Day by day, I woke up exactly at 8:30 every morning and honestly just lived my regular life. Nothing special, just occasionally recording the battery percentage of my Apple Watch and doing the usual stuff I do on my Apple Watch, like pair up some AirPods for music at the gym, check my activity, look at notifications, start workouts, start a timer here and there, you know, the usual. This was done on purpose to try and replicate real world usage so you guys have a better idea of what you can expect battery wise from your brand new Apple Watch. This small project took me about a week to just perform the drain test and then an additional week for putting it all together for you all. So guys, I would love if you're new here to click that subscribe button down below. I was gonna say click the red subscribe button, but I guess it isn't red anymore, isn't it? Huh. These videos do take a long time to put together, so at the bare minimum, a like goes a long way. So anyway guys, let's not waste any more time. Let's roll that intro and go over a few rules as well as our official tell of the tape. I hope you're just as excited for this one as I am. Let's get started. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so for this drain test, we have 4 eager combatants ready to showcase their brute strength and endurance. I know battery life is on the top of everyone's priority list when purchasing or upgrading to a new smartwatch. Obviously, with the all-new Apple Watch Ultra, which is touted as having insanely long battery life, one can theorize that the Ultra should last the longest. The question is just how much longer with regular usage over the other watches currently being offered. So first, because I performed these tests over a span of about a week, it is a much longer video than usual, and so for your convenience, I have attached video chapters for y'all down below so you can skip over to certain parts of the drain test should you feel the need to do so. Now, setting up some quick ground rules. So all of these watches were paired to the same iPhone. That being my daily driver, my iPhone 14 Pro Max. All watches had their brightness turned on to their max brightness setting and have disabled auto brightness. Also, all watches had their Bluetooth turned on during the entire test, and every Apple Watch was updated to the maximum supported version of watchOS. I say this because I also threw in the Apple Watch Series 3 in there for this test. And I know, Apple axed it from the official lineup. It's gone, I know that. But I've seen plenty of third-party resellers still offering this outdated dinosaur. And additionally, there's still a lot of folks that currently own a Series 3. So it would be useful for those people to see how the Series 3 compares to the rest of the lineup. So in the case of the Series 3, it drops support for watchOS 9. So I would never recommend anyone buying a Series 3 in 2022 going into 2023, simply because future upgrades to watchOS will not be supported on the Series 3. All 3 of the other watches, however, are all upgraded to watchOS 9.1. So that is an important detail to take note of since we're trying to make this as fair a test as possible. One final important note, the battery health of all of these 4 devices is at or near 100%. Over time, especially on the Series 3, since it's technically been out the longest, the battery will begin to degrade and hold much less of its original max charge. This is why, if you've had a Series 3 for several years now and it starts to die in just about 5 hours, it's probably due to battery degradation and might be time for an upgrade. Alright, here we go. We first start off with the Series 3. On every day a test was performed, I made sure to be up before 8:30 a.m. because that's the usual time I wake up to anyway. I make myself a cup of coffee and wait for the US stock market to open. So of course, it's starting off with fresh legs at 100%. Normally, I like to go for a jog or walk in the morning while dropping my daily incense on Pokemon Go. That way I get to knock out 2 birds with 1 stone, you know? But the most important part of my jog is starting that workout to track my performance. I always say I'll keep the jog light and quick, but I ended up doing more of cardio than I thought for a little under 1 hour and jogged a total of about 5 kilometers. But most importantly, what's our battery level at? It really doesn't drop all that much, only dropping to around 87%, and this was around noon. So that's about 3.5 hours since it was removed from its charger. Some time had passed and I was beginning to get hungry, so I headed over to Zaxby's for some wings and things, and looked down at my Series 3 to find it still holding up reasonably well. It's down only to 81%. About 2 hours later, I was heading to the store to get more food for my cat Bean and figured it'd be a good time to see where the watch was at. It dropped to just 76% around 4 p.m. Now granted, ever since my run, I really hadn't been doing much on the Apple Watch other than receiving a few notifications and setting a timer. So not bad performance, but it could be better. Alright, my day continues as before heading to the gym, I was working on my iPad buying guide for 2023 that I just released. I'll attach a card at the top right and link is in the video description if you happen to be in the market for a new iPad. But around this time, which was 10 till 6, our Apple Watch now drops to 69%. Not long after taking some B-roll shots, I did eventually make it to the gym and headed to the treadmill first to get the blood pumping for chest day. This was around 6:45 p.m. and you already know I got my pre-workout ready. Checked the battery life, which was now at 66%, and began an indoor run on the treadmill. At the conclusion of a light 20-minute run, we see our Series 3 now drops to 63%. But we didn't just come to the gym to run. So I headed over to the weights and had a pretty decent 40-minute lift session. After getting some good amount of points towards closing my rings, the Series 3 plunges even further, now dropping to nearly half capacity, officially coming in at 59%. Towards the end of the night, I started to wind down just a little bit while I was finishing editing my video for my iPad buying guide. It was about 11 p.m. here, so how well is our S3 holding out? It's honestly not doing too bad, as now it's only down to about 52%. But again, if I were to go to bed at 11 and with 52% battery, means that when I wake up, it'll probably be at around 35% roughly, which wouldn't last me all day. I had my social media manager give me the thumbs up on my thumbnail, and thankfully, she reviewed it and approved. So then, I decided to stay up a bit longer and play some Uno with my girlfriend over FaceTime. So now, it was a little past 2 a.m. and the watch now dwindles further down to 35%. Not all too good, but now it's time for bed and we do not set it on its charger like we regularly would, and instead get ready for bed, leave it on the wrist, and turn on Apple's sleep feature, and catch some Z's and wait for the next day. Tomorrow thankfully did arrive, shout out God, and woke up again at around the same time and was surprised to already see the Series 3 officially in the red, coming in at 19%. If I were to guess, I'm sure this watch probably won't last until sunset, perhaps even earlier. This was a slight overcast and drizzly day out here in good old Athens, Georgia. So instead of going out for a walk, I did some cleaning up around the studio and went to the store for some dishwashing soap and some K-cups. So before I hopped into my car, I checked the battery and it now sunk to 12%, pretty much starting to gas out and close to throwing in the towel. And then right at noon, I got the dreaded 10% battery notification. Here you have the option of going into power reserve or for the newer watches, low power mode. But for the sake of this test, none of the watches will get this privilege. We powered through and continue on with our drain test, and now around 1 p.m. head back to the gym, this time for leg day. Cause come on guys, you cannot skip out on leg day. No sir. Anyways, I walk into the gym, I check the watch to see it now at 9%. It probably won't last my entire workout, to be honest. We hop off the treadmill after another decent 25-minute jog, and our watch now is on its last legs. Probably not going to be able to keep up with leg day with me. It's now down to 6%. And just as expected, I was 3 sets into my weightlifting routine when the watch drops down to 1% at around 1:33 p.m. and held onto that 1% for a decent amount of time until finally calling it quits roughly around 1:56 p.m. Meaning it lasted 29 hours and 26 minutes, which isn't bad at all. Towards the end, I'll recap all the times with some charts so we can compare and also give my inputs as to why the watches performed as they did. 29 hours is a lot for a Series 3, but keep in mind, my S3 rarely gets worn, and thus its battery health levels are nearly brand new, which a lot of people with a Series 3 simply cannot say. Alright, so now heading over to the Apple Watch SE 2nd generation in Starlight, which has to be my hands down favorite new color on the aluminum models, as it's really grown on me. So again, we're up and alive at 8:30 a.m. Only this time, I had spent the night over at my mom's house to spend some time with my handsome little nephew. We slap it on the wrist and 2 hours later head for a brisk walk around the neighborhood. Before starting my workout, we check out to find the SE sitting at a very respectable 99% more than 2 hours after being taken off of its charger. Not bad. On this day, I had gone early Christmas shopping to get ahead and not wait to the last minute. There were some pretty fire sales, not gonna lie, so while shopping, I look down and find the SE to be at 88%, roughly at around 3:30 p.m. Later that afternoon, around 6 p.m., I head back once again to the gym on hump day to secure them gains. And before entering the gym, we look down to find our Apple Watch SE to be at 78%. As compared to the Series 3, this is already a noticeable improvement given the same amount of time into testing. As usual, we start off with a quick 15-minute jog and see the watch now fall to 77%. After another 60-minute session at the gym, we end our workout and check our battery to find it now at 70%. Once I get home, I let my cat Bean out on the porch, which is dubbed her recess time, and just take some time to appreciate life a little and look down to find the SE at 67%. This was nearing 9 p.m., so I'm feeling more and more confident that the SE will certainly outclass the Series 3 in terms of battery life. And then finally, on this particular night, I did go to sleep early, which for me, early is around midnight. And so around this time, the SE stood at a much more respectable 55%. Waking up the following morning, now being Thursday, we check the watch right before market open, which is 9:30 a.m. and unlike the Series 3, thankfully is not officially in the red, but is certainly under half tank with 39%. Then a few hours later, I began working on a video review of the Google Pixel 6a, and while filming, looked down to find the SE officially to a third tank, now dropping to 33%. While working on YT, I normally like to go out, drive, get some fresh air, so I did just that and hit up Racetrack, which is a popular gas chain company down here in the southeast. This was around 1:30 p.m. by the way, roughly around the time the Series 3 was starting to give up, but the SE holds the fort down, only being down to 25% battery. So already it's clear the SE is superior battery-wise versus the Series 3 by considerable margins. Later on that afternoon, nearing 4 p.m., I go on my obligatory pogo walk, check the battery before cranking out the workout, and find it to be at 14%, now starting to slip and getting closer to tapping out. Miraculously, during my jog, the watch indicates to me that it is officially in the red with the dreaded 10% battery notification around 4:30. We disregard it for now and finish our workout, which ended up being yet another 60-minute sesh, this time traveling more than 5 kilometers. But by the end of this workout, the Apple Watch SE now falls to only 6% battery at around 5 o'clock. I try to get the 1% shot before it officially dies, and thankfully I did right before 7 o'clock as I was heading to the gym, and as you may have been able to guess, it wasn't long before it called it quits. And I wasn't able to even start a sweat going on the treadmill before the SE met its fate roughly around 7:09 p.m., meaning the SE withstood nearly 36 hours, officially tapping out for me with a total runtime of 34 hours and 39 minutes. Not bad at all. And with the SE, S8, and Ultra supporting quick charge, theoretically you could pop a charger on this thing for 10 minutes, maybe on your lunch break or something, and that way it should be enough to give you enough juice to power you through right before bedtime, where you can leave it on to charge overnight. But for this case, of course, we do not charge them and we just leave them on the wrist until they die. So that was the SE, superior to the S3 in terms of battery, and while being relatively affordable for most people. Alright, now we head on to the S8, featuring an always-on display that could play a factor here, and whose display is 1mm larger versus the SE 2nd gen. It doesn't sound like a lot, but this does equate in roughly 20% more screen real estate versus the SE, meaning it does have to push out considerable more pixels, which could be a hindrance to battery. So as usual, 8:30 a.m. we get up bright and early, slap the S8 on the wrist and get ready for action. I opted to use a leather link band for in the morning and then switch to a sportier band later on for my workouts. A couple hours pass and it's recess time for Bean again, so we look down and 2 hours in our S8 drops to 94%. Still not bad and way too early to make any assumptions. About an hour later, I decided it was time to swap bands as I prepped for my physical activity for the day, and as you can see, it's still at a very respectable 92%. After this, you already know what's going on. I kept the watch face style the same, only this time to match with my band, and headed to the treadmill to start my workout, and during this day was when Morocco beat Spain in the World Cup at PKs. Total shocker to everyone. You don't see them, but there were about 4 other guys to my left all watching the nail-biting PK shootout with me. Anyway, once I finished my 25-minute run, we can see the S8 still stands at 87%. Once I got back from my workout, which also included a weightlifting sesh, our Series 8 now drops to 76% around 3:20 p.m. After my lifting sesh, it was time to head over to my boy Ken's house to work on our final project together, which by the way, he's the guy that provides my beats to my videos. Check out his link in the video description. But I managed to sneak a quick glance at the watch during coding, and as we can see, it now drops to 73%. Now, I forgot how busy this day was for me, seeing as how I then drove to my blood brother's house, who also has a soccer channel named VC Football, and we recently did a collab. So while I was over there around 6:45 p.m., I glanced at my watch to find it at 66%. And at the conclusion of filming our collab, which ended up being around 8 p.m., the Apple Watch Series 8 now drops to 62%, nearing half capacity. Alright, and to round out the night, I did enjoy a drink or two downtown with my longtime good friend Silos that I just sold an Apple Watch to. So he just joined the Apple Watch community, and he claims he won't be sucked into being a bandaholic, but we'll just have to wait and see about that one. This was around 9:30 p.m. and the watch still manages to be at a very healthy 56%. I finally arrive home to continue taking more B-roll for my channel, and at 11:15 p.m., the Apple Watch Series 8 now officially drops under half tank to 49%. This is a pretty healthy battery percentage to be at heading into the night in my opinion. The following morning around 9:30 a.m., the Series 8 now sinks further down to 21%, just a single point away from the red. Once again, we feature a pretty overcast and misty morning, perfect for a nice jog. So around 10 a.m., we see the Series 8 being at 18% before my run, and after my 30-minute cardio session, we hit a workout, and at around 10:30, we can see we're starting to be in the danger zone, officially dropping down to 14%. At around 11:30, we get that Petsky notification, so it won't be much longer before this guy calls it quits. And I was very surprised to see that roughly around the same time the Series 3 crashed, the Series 8, an Apple Watch several generations ahead of the Series 3, is also nearing the end, coming in at 1%, nearing 2 o'clock p.m. And sure enough, about 15 minutes later, our always-on display officially shuts off, indicating the watch is now out of juice, and closes out with an official time at 2:05 p.m., only minutes ahead of the Series 3. Interesting results to say the least, but do consider that the Series 8 not only has a larger screen, thus having to pump out more pixels, but just as I hypothesized, that always on display clearly drained it much faster versus the SE. Consider the SE that does not have the always on display, and it lasted about 5 hours longer, so I'm sure there's a correlation there. Alright, and finally, the moment a lot of you guys have been waiting for, the Apple Watch Ultra. How does this chunky Apple Watch compare to the rest of the lineup? A long time. I'll already go ahead and let you know. For this reason, I'm going to go over the narration of my days spent performing the drain test on the Ultra quickly, because it just would not die, like damn. So as usual, 8:30 a.m. and we remove the Ultra at 100% off its charger and slap it on the wrist. When I recorded the drain test, I still had classes, so as I was heading to my coding class, I checked my wrist and it's still at 100%. After classes at around 12:30, I walked back through campus to my car and checked my wrist to see the Ultra being at 98%. I decided to start a brisk walk workout after class to play some pogo while clocking in some steps, and when I finally got back to the parking deck, I looked down to see the Ultra at a very respectable 96%. This was also during the World Cup group stages, I believe, as I was watching the USA versus Iran game and looked down at around 2 p.m. to see the Ultra at a strong 93%, only dropping 7 points, closing in on 6 hours since it's been removed from its charger. Not bad at all. After the game, which the USA won, I hop in my car to celebrate on a Target run, if I'm not mistaken, because as an adult, Target runs low-key be the highlight of the day at times, no lie. Anyway, upon cranking the ignition on, I raise the volume to max and blast some J Balvin, look down and see the watch at 87%. Eventually, I had to make it to my old college before I transferred to UGA, which is UNG, a nice small college town that has no on-campus housing. Reason being, I tutor in mathematics, so if you struggle with maths, I could maybe help you out. Maybe. So anyway, it's around 5:30 at this point on day 1, and the Ultra is still standing at a very healthy 85%. Okay, tutoring finished, and now I had to pump some gas in the Volvo. Looking down, I see it's starting to get a little late as I need to rush home to turn in an assignment before midnight. It's 6:47 p.m. and the Ultra is still at 82%. It's now 9:20 p.m. and I go into the kitchen for a quick snack, and with a flick of the wrist, look at the Ultra now being at 78%. Which, I mean, come on, that's basically all day usage for some early sleepers. And it still has more than a third tank full. Insane. Eventually though, it was time for bed and I ended up sleeping around midnight yet again, and before I laid down and closed my eyes, I checked to see the battery, which was now standing at 74%. Extremely impressive already, to say the least. So now, day 2, we wake up, it's a brand new day, and around 8:40 a.m., we check my Ultra that has been on my wrist all night and see it dropped down to 61%. Apple Watches tend to drop anywhere from 15 to 30% depending on your battery health overnight. So if you go to bed with 15 to 25% left, do expect for it to be dead upon waking up the following day. Shortly after waking up and observing the market open, we go for a brisk walk around the neighborhood and look down to find the Ultra at 59%. Starting off the day with more than 50% implies it should last us a full extra day before even considering recharging. Will this be the case with the Ultra? Just wait and find out. After my 40-minute walk, we see I ended up moving more than 2 miles, and our battery now drops to 55%. Next up, I needed some more printer paper, so I head over to my local Office Max around 11:45 a.m. And at this point, the Ultra was at 52%. Then I headed to Walmart for a bit of quick groceries and snacks, and at this point, the Ultra is at exactly half capacity. Once again, this test was performed during World Cup season, so sadly, my team, Mexico, got eliminated in the group stage, and after the game, the Ultra slips down to 41%. It's about to be 6 p.m. and I think it's almost gym time. So when I got back home, I looked down to see the Ultra now at 37%. Keep in mind, up until this moment in the game, the Ultra has already now outclassed all the others, not only lasting longer, but flexing its gains with still having plenty of juice to spare. Some time passes as I hurry along to finish some statistics homework. It's nearly 50 minutes till midnight, so we give a quick glance at our watch to see it's still at 27%. Right before bed though, I had to take out the trash at night, so we look down and see the Ultra now being at 26%. It's officially bedtime, so I come back to the Ultra now at a quarter capacity at 25%, and this is just extremely impressive. I've now gotten 2 full days of regular usage and still have enough juice to go on into the next day. So anyway, it was time to KO, and now, once again, it's a brand new day. Day 3 of using the Ultra without it being charged. After 2 days of using the same band, I decide it's time for a switch up, so I go ahead and switch over to the Yellow Ocean band, one of my favorites at the current moment. Here's me now heading on to my last day of class for the semester. A really good day, I do remember that. So before officially being on campus, I look down and see the watch now drops to 12%. Can it last me a whole extra day until bedtime? It's possible, but it's gonna cut it close. While in class during my last lab session, I get the dreaded 10% notification. Not good. I'm not too sure how much longer this guy will last. After class, I hop back into my car and drive back home, and while on the way home, I check the Ultra to see it break down to 7%, essentially on its last legs. It's almost 1 o'clock p.m. and also recess time, and at this moment, the Ultra is now at 4%. So now it's becoming less and less probable it's going to last me until bedtime for a 4th day. But wow, what a performance the Ultra has given us. This is phenomenal battery life when compared to the other watches in the lineup. Minutes after, I put my gym shorts on and go outside for what's possibly our final pogo walk of this drain test, now being at only 3% battery. We crank up the workout and start our walk. I was curious while on my run, so 20 minutes in, I looked down to finally see the Ultra down to 1%. At this point, it was a little past 1 p.m. As I was finishing my walk and heading home, I looked down to finally see the Ultra shut off, no longer displaying anything, which means, ladies and gentlemen, we have a winner. The official time for the Ultra came in at 1:08 p.m., giving it a full 52 hours, 38 minutes of regular usage before it threw in the towel. And now, as I mentioned, let's look at the numbers in a visual format in the form of this handy dandy graph. As you can see, the Ultra is leagues ahead of the rest, and that largely has to do with its massive size and physical battery. But what was interesting to see as well was the SE coming in second. Not only being an amazing value, but now you can expect for it to perform better overall battery-wise as compared to the beefier Series 8. This is despite Apple claiming they have the same estimated battery life and despite them having the exact same internals with the S8 chip. Again, I believe this has to do because of the always-on display. Even though it refreshes at 1 Hz and the S8 is very battery efficient, I think ultimately it puts some drag, sort of like a weight on the battery life, which makes it drain at a slightly faster pace. And then there's the Series 3, which lasted much longer than I thought, but remember, the S3 is upgraded to watchOS 8 and not the most recent watchOS 9. Obviously, it's clear that if I would have turned on low power mode, then these watches would have lasted much longer. So if you guys want to see a similar drain test using low power mode, definitely let me know down below. Guys, I truly hope you enjoyed this video, and if you found it useful, share it with someone you know that's in the market for a brand new Apple Watch. It would mean the world to me. All the watches shown have 100% battery health, so it gives a pretty accurate picture of how a fresh new watch will perform in the real world with pretty mundane tasks that I feel the majority of people do on their Apple Watches. I know this video was a lot longer than my regular videos, but I had no choice since narrating several days of Apple Watch draining was inevitably going to call for a longer video. In any case, guys, let me know your thoughts down below. Did any of these numbers surprise you? I hope everyone stays warm in the upcoming days. Sounds like Christmas 2022 is going to be crazy cold for a lot of us here in the US. Stay safe, guys, and I cannot wait to catch you all in my next video.